Today's episode of the Camp Buble podcast sponsored by HomeNukeKit.com. Why settle for videos and diagrams when you and the kids can learn about and construct your very own working bathtub nuclear reactor? Enrich the included uranium ore right in your kitchen sink.
Daddy, my head hurts.
It's fine, honey. I'll open a window. Then fire up your reactor right in your bathtub and enjoy countless hours of fun.
It feels like my skin is burning.
I'm sure it's just your allergies, buddy. Do you have what it takes to keep the reactor online, or will you experience a meltdown and contaminate the local drinking water for many generations to come? Pre-order yours before the holidays at HomeNukeKit.com. Enter code CampBublePodcast for your second kit absolutely free. The Camp Buble Podcast. Conversations with interesting people.
Oh, wait, back up. And he was like, oh my God, you're serious.
This is really going to happen.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it to go after your dream. I guess I just want people to be inspired. But if there's something you want to do, you probably can give it a try.
I only want genuine interaction because I don't know how much time I have here. Maybe that's my own mortality. Yeah. Like, I'm like 41 years old and I'm like, I think a lot about death because I talk about it every day. That's probably why.
Well, that's true. I mean, you are forced to... Thanks for coming back for episode 3 of the Camp Buble podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to these. I can't thank you enough. Today I'm talking to Annie Warner. Annie's an old college friend of mine who has gone on to start her own law firm. She deals with special needs planning and trust and estates. We get into that some and what it was like to start that firm, and then also some of our sort of tried and true subjects of just raising a family today. Hope you enjoy. I had a great time with this. Annie is someone whose time with I treasure. Unfortunately, we just don't end up finding the time to get together as often as we would like. Anyways, let's get to Annie.
I try to eat breakfast. I do. I eat it every day or else I feel like crap. So
Okay.
I have to eat it every day.
Is it a first thing out of bed thing for you? Or
kind of. I give myself like a little time. I make coffee. I make a latte every morning. I'm usually the first one up, so I'm usually like trying to take a moment of quiet before everyone else gets up, and then I make myself some breakfast and make sure I eat before all the chaos of the day starts, because I probably won't. I do eat lunch, but it could be later. It could be like
that one's more hit and miss.
Yeah, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't always get up well before everybody else, but I love the quiet when I do.
Oh my God. It's necessary at this time. And I feel like having kids did that, obviously, making sure that I have a moment or two to start out my day. But then also, I feel like turning 40 and kind of like all the stuff that's happened in the last 18 months of like the world and my life and everything else, that I've just been, I need that time to just chill.
Yeah.
Without having someone ask me for something.
Yeah.
Or have to, make a lunch for someone or
yeah, well, talked about that with Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of the constant, you hate to call the family a distraction, but they are. When you've got something you need to get done.
It's constant.
And not having that constant distraction, even for like an hour or two, it's huge.
It's so huge. And this year is the first year that Alex, my youngest, who's 4, turning 5 in October, he is doing 5-day-a-week preschool, but on Thursdays and Fridays, he goes for the morning session. And for the last, I guess, maybe year and a half to 2 years, have not been working on Fridays. So I have Monday through Thursday of work, and then I don't work on Fridays. But this is the first time where he isn't with me all day.
Okay.
So he's at preschool for the morning, and I get 2.5 hours now
That's
to
a lot
myself.
of time.
It feels luxurious. And I'm not going to lie, I am loving just being able to do whatever the heck I want during that time. Even though it's not that long, it feels like such a gift the reason I work 4 days a week is mainly because I wanted to spend that 5th day with the kids during the summer and then with Alex during the school year before he goes to kindergarten full time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm still getting that benefit of hanging out with him in the afternoon and at lunch and everything, but now I'm getting like a little breather for myself, which I think at this point in my life, in my career, in just everything, I desperately need that 2.5 hours of nobody needing anything from me.
Right. And what's not, you were saying it's not even every day, right? It's just these 2 days.
Oh no, it's one. It's one day.
One day.
It's one morning. It's Friday mornings from 9 to 11:30.
But that's enough.
That I don't have any. I don't have work, and I don't have children, and all I can do is something. I've been trying to do the things I want to do or that I need to do. I had this dream when I first realized I was going to have this schedule like months ago. I was like, oh, I should take a writing class during that time or something because I want to get back into writing more. And no, there's no writing class that's offered in that specific time frame.
Right.
So I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah.
But I am doing things like, going and getting a pedicure or running the errands for me.
I'm not even sure I'm convinced that a writing class or a class of any sort is the best use of that time. Given where you are in life and what you've got going on, it's like, there probably will be a time when like that class will make all the sense in the world. It's like, I kind of just feel like I need to soak up some sort of new skill or knowledge or whatever. But I don't at least for myself, and we're at a similar point in life as far as raising families and just handling things. No, a couple hours free, for me, it's the chance to knock out that project that's just been nagging the back of my mind that it's not done.
Yeah.
Just the peace of mind that comes from knocking out one of those little projects that keeps scratching at you and it's like, I'm not done yet. It's like when you knock one of those out, that is an awesome use of an unexpected hour or two that you end up having free.
For sure.
Because you sleep better that night. You're like, I finally got that project done.
And then
maybe no one else notices, but I don't care. I know.
You feel energized, I think. I do, at least. Like when I feel like I knocked something out or on my to-do list or I crossed off another item that was like
or made
on
a phone
mine.
call that I wasn't looking forward to making, so I was taking excuses to not make, and I just, damn it, I finally made that stupid phone call.
God, they say that's called eating the frog or something like that.
Yeah. What?
And I'm like...
Yeah, that you just get it over with.
Yeah, you just do it. And I feel, in my personal life, I just feel like I have this constant ticker of stuff that goes by that I have to do or manage for the family and for myself. And then so it's just super... So I was having lunch with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and she said something that has stuck with me, and I'm totally going to use it in like when I finally take the writing class and I finally write the book.
Yeah.
It's going to be, she said, I never dreamed of this part of my life. And I was like, oh God, yes.
Yeah, she's so right.
Yes. Like we're in that like middle, like just managing part. Like we're not in the new stage phase. Like we're not dreaming of buying your first home, getting married, or having your first kid and having little guys around. And finding your career, or, I mean, maybe some people are for sure. I mean, sometimes I'm like, what am I going to do with my life?
I guess some people could be having a really exciting period right now, but I feel like for a lot of us, no, you're just hopefully sort of reaping the rewards of having made some decent decisions 15 years ago. But there's nothing really exciting about the reaping of that reward.
You're like, I never...
It's sort of the purpose of those good decisions was for these years to not be a roller coaster. That was the point.
But no one tells you that.
Yeah.
No one tells you.
And that you will occasionally long for a roller coaster ride.
Right. Or a new adventure, something surprise.
Yeah.
Not a baby, God no. not a surprise baby at
No,
this age.
no.
But,
Maybe something simpler, like starting a podcast.
Yes. Or, taking that writing class. But I was just laughing because I also feel that kind of acutely. And I feel that, no, I never dreamed of this part of my life where I am dealing with kind of the middle section of a career or like figuring that out, which can be super freaking boring. And
yeah.
What's the party line on swearing on this?
Oh, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I actually haven't done a lot of swearing in the first 2 episodes.
I mean, I'm like censoring myself
I
now.
didn't, and it was because it was more because of the guests.
Okay.
So yeah, have at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like. I'm trying my children often are like, Mom, you have to stop swearing, which is so bad because my husband doesn't swear really. Ever.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, maybe in front of me a little bit he will, but not in front of them ever.
So they see a stark difference between the two of you.
Oh, yeah. And
it's clear to them. So yeah, so the kids see a stark difference between
I don't
you and
swear
between
that
you
often
and Dave.
around them,
yeah.
but I definitely...
Me either. I mean, I try not to.
They know. They know all the curse. And it's funny because my oldest, he's very much the rule follower, firstborn, so he's never going to say... He asked me permission one time to use the word hell as a noun, to actually refer to the actual place. He's like, can I say H-E double hockey sticks, Mom? Because I want to tell you about like heaven and hell.
Yeah. Just in context. Yeah, but he was still careful.
Like a place.
Yeah. That's great.
But
so it's easy for him.
My middle, he's going to test it out on me in private.
Yeah, and he's going to just see if it flies.
Well, and I told him, I said, you know what? Like, if you're going to say shit about something, I was like, if you use it properly, but you're not to use it at school, and you also can't use it in front of other kids where they're going to go home and tattle to say that they learned it from you. Because I said, if I get a call from another parent,
because that's what makes you nervous is that they're going to teach it to kids.
Yeah. So then I was like, then it's all it's all over. And he probably never does it outside of outside of my presence.
Right.
But I think he likes it. And then my little guy, the other day was just like, God, he's an idiot. So like, I'm not certain how my 4-year-old's gonna, mature, but he
is gonna be the one that teaches the other kids on the playground.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be a little more careful in the next couple of years.
He's gonna put on classes.
I'm gonna have to be a little bit more censored at home.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It doesn't bother me, and I think it gives sometimes the emphasis to language that I need to emphasize things.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I curse it a lot. Acacia does as well. And we also, though, don't do it a ton in front of the kids, but it's certainly not zero.
It's certainly not zero.
It's not.
You're like, we might be at like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm especially if they're present, but I'm not really interacting with them.
Yeah.
But then like an old friend calls me on the phone, I'm going to... At some point, I'm going to just sort of mosey on into an old conversation with an old friend and just ignore the fact that the kids happen to be within earshot.
Well, it kind of like, I don't care if other people don't swear, like if that's like what they prefer not to do. And I try not to do it, obviously, in business settings and all of this. But like, don't cast judgment on me because I'm going to drop something once in a while. And I'm like, that puritanical, attitude.
If you don't think you're going to get a smart-ass comment out of me, or at least a look, you are.
Yeah.
I'm not. Exactly.
Let's get real. Actually, at work the other day, I was delighted when a client... came in and I said, well, what brings you in today? To put some context, I do estate planning. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of adulting that goes on in my office. And she came in, she's like, well, I figured it was time to get my shit together. And I said, and she goes, I'm sorry for swearing. And I said, no, girl, if that could be my slogan or advertising for my business, time to get your shit together, get your will in place.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Then I would use it as my advertising. Why not? So she was laughing. I was like, thank you for just being honest and open, and I'm with you.
That's awesome. I love it.
Solidarity.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this, I will have done a more proper introduction ahead of time of exactly who you are and what you're up to. But let's get into sort of how you got to be where you are right now. Because when you and I first met in college, I don't know that law was definitely in your future at that point.
No.
Was it in your head?
Okay, so I think... Okay, to put it in context, I think there's my personality is competitive. If I look at something as a goal, I typically go after it and can make it work a lot of the time. And I also had a childhood where my parents got divorced when I was, they separated when I was in maybe 6th grade, and then it was a long process. So there was a lot of insecurity about kind of stability and finances and things like that for a long time.
Gotcha.
And a lot of reliance upon my dad for financial security, because my mother was, until she separated from my dad, was a stay-at-home mom.
Gotcha. So she was treading out into scary waters.
Well, and had to go and find a job and do all these things and be a single mom and all of that. And I just kind of vowed from early age, I am never gonna be reliant on anyone else for financial security. And I was never, to be clear, I was never super interested in being a stay-at-home parent or anything like that.
Right. So it's not like that was a huge turn.
No, but I knew that I needed something that was going to afford me, I guess, the lifestyle that I kind of wanted or envisioned. And I don't know if you ever felt this way growing up in the 80s and 90s, but my husband and I talk about it a lot. Being a doctor or a lawyer was kind of revered as the top echelon of you achieved.
It still was, and that faded at a point.
Yes.
But it was very much in place. You're right, when we grew up.
Oh yeah, it was those were the two top kind of revered careers that if you did that, then
you can be a doctor or lawyer or there's everything else.
Yeah, exactly. But and no one told you what everything else was.
Right. Yeah, the point was fall at all that everything else if you fail at doctor or lawyer.
Yeah, I guess you'll go in the other category.
Everyone should be shooting for doctor lawyer. And then if you fall away...
So you felt that too a little bit.
That was very much in play.
The success driver.
Exactly. And never personally for me pushed to the point of you're a failure if you're not one of those. But it was definitely just pressed into my brain. They deserve your utmost respect.
Yes.
They are at the top. 30 years earlier, 20 years earlier, it was airline pilots.
Oh, yeah.
They went through that phase.
Yeah.
Where, they were just absolutely revered. And people would teach their kids, you stand up straight. There's an airline pilot walking by. Right? And so they definitely have their phases. But, yeah, doctor and lawyer.
Yeah, it was one or it. Those were it kind of if you want success and respect and reverence as a career choice.
You're right. Yeah, there was definitely the lesson that it wasn't just money. It was money and respect.
Uh-huh. So somehow that got completely written into my brain as
Okay, so you did have that seed at least.
And I've always been someone, so there's that, like, I was like, okay, I need to be self-reliant. I need to make money. And I also am an achiever, so I want to, like, achieve. Like, and this is what, if this is the level that is looked at with respect, or my grandparents would say, oh, she's a lawyer or whatever, you know, when talking to their friends, then hell yeah, Annie can do that. Like, I'm going to go and do that. And so for me, it was kind of, that was always in the background, is like, those were the jobs kind of, and I'm not science-y. So this was like, I am a writer. I am somebody that can communicate. So, and I also am somebody that, like, if I see injustice or inequity or something like that, oh yeah, I get fired up. So it's like something that it seemed like a natural kind of, if I'm going to do one or the other, lawyer's definitely the one I'm going to do, because I have no interest in science.
Yeah, so it did connect with you beyond just, oh, well, I'll be respected and that's what I want.
Right.
That wouldn't have been enough.
But also the money was going to be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. and knowing that, like, well, there don't seem to be any poor lawyers.
Yeah, except now I know there are. And, like, I also...
we all figured that out later. We're like, man, there's some broke-ass lawyers in the world.
But
we didn't know about them in the early 80s.
Well, no, and you're seeing, also, let's say another influence in my maybe teenage years, all the damn John Grisham books and movies were, like, putting lawyers into these crazy, exciting situations. True. And then Legally Blonde came out, and she was, like, making it super attainable to, you know, go to Harvard and get a perfect score on your LSAT and everything else. So, like, I was like, I guess, yeah, sure. And so I'm at DePaul, you know, in college, where you knew me. And no, I was not, as a sophomore at DePaul, when you and I became friends, I was not shooting for law school at that point.
You weren't yet driven to that.
No, but I was kind of thinking, like, what am I going to do after college? And then, while we were in school, all of those, so many things crashed. Like, the financial crash, like, you know, like all those consulting firms.
There was like the .com crash happened right around that point, and that was big. I think not necessarily for me personally, but I remember that really rocking my dad's sort of just faith in free markets, and that and that entrepreneurs are gonna dig us out of any hole we could ever find ourselves in. And then here we were, surrounded by this absolute shit show, stuck in the bottom of a pit that was dug by entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And I remember my dad just thinking that, like, he's having a really hard time wrapping his mind around what the hell just happened here.
Yeah. That happened, and, like, all those consulting and, like, accounting firms went under all of a sudden. Like, so many of our peers, like, had job offers that went away all of a sudden that were, like, lucrative job offers in Chicago and, like, New York and all these things, and they went away. And so I'm looking at myself and having an English degree and, like, a minor in sociology, which is super fascinating to me, but also probably helped get me in the mindset of law stuff, because it's so, I don't know, there's a lot of interesting intersection with sociology. But I think I'm looking at that, I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to apply? I don't even know what the job would have been. Like, an assistant or a publishing assistant, or, like, what am I going to do after school? And I was like, I'm not really ready to make that decision. So let's go to law school and get, like, you know, $200,000 of debt. Like, sure.
Of course.
Yeah, like, what is the next step?
Because I'm not busy next Monday.
Yeah.
Let's start law school.
Let's just do that. And then also, people will think I'm pretty cool.
So it was kind of a whim. Obviously, you had the grades, though, to get you in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the kind of whim where, like, the dropout decides I want to go to law school. That's a little taller of a hurdle to get over.
I decided probably by the end of my junior year, I was studying abroad in England for the first semester of my junior year, and then I went and this is when I decided for law school. I know this for a fact. I went and did an internship in New York City for the television show Law and Order.
Yep.
And it was so fun, but it helped me completely know that I did not want to work in entertainment at a starting level as a production assistant and work 15-hour days.
That's a thankless world.
And live in like a studio apartment with probably like a roommate in New York City or Brooklyn or whatever borough, Queens, I could afford. Pay out to wazoo and schlep around New York City. I mean, sure, spring and fall might be nice, but then in January when you're freezing,
it's miserable.
And you can't even walk down the street because your face hurts. I learned that quickly, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this because that was my first dream, was to be in entertainment and either be an actor, a writer,
that's awesome
a producer.
You got that close to it, though.
Yes,
so
it helped.
You got an actual taste for it.
I did, and
you weren't watching videos about it and wondering what it's like. No, you did it.
No, I did it, and I liked it
at a shitty low level.
Yeah.
So you took the brunt of the shit work, I'm sure.
Oh,
and
for
it was,
sure.
And it was thankless.
Yes.
But you saw how the people at the higher levels. How they were living their life and what their job was like day to day, and I guess at that point, at least you get to see, okay, that's like the top dog, and I don't even want that.
Right, you kind of saw behind the curtain.
That doesn't look appealing to me.
No, you got the curtain pulled back.
Yeah,
I realized that there are definitely cool stuff about it, and there was a lot of cool people I met, and really kind of fun. For instance, do you remember that show on Nickelodeon when we were young called Pete and Pete with the redheaded kids?
Yes, I didn't watch it much, but I remember it.
So the older Pete, Michael something is the actor.
Okay.
He was on Law and Order for like a stint or something, and then he also ended up doing like a shadowing internship with one of the producers of the show. So he and I became friends when he worked there. And I can tell you, like, one of the main benefits of me doing this internship was like, oh yeah, I got to meet the older Pete.
Yeah, that's
one time I was drinking.
That's the brush. That's
at
the
like
brush
a
with
bar
fame.
with him, and I called him Pete. And I was so embarrassed.
That is awesome.
I don't think he caught it. I pretended like it didn't happen. I think he probably did.
Yeah.
Because that's how I referred to him, of course, outside of
Right. That's how you explain him to everyone else.
I'm like, I was hanging with Pete, older Pete.
Yeah.
But anywho, so
that's
like,
awesome.
I got to do fun stuff. I got to have a really cool experience. I mean, living in New York City, I lived there for 4 or 5 months, and then I ended up working through the summer. That summer before I came back to DePaul for my senior year, but I made a decision. Okay, I gotta go to grad school because this is not where I think I'm gonna be able to hack it as a 22, 3-year-old. I'm a learner too, so I was like, I think I should just go to law school. I probably won't regret having a law degree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I went and kind of started that process of really studying for the LSAT, taking the LSAT, applying to law schools, and going through that during my senior year. And then I just went.
Yeah.
After graduation, and
I just didn't look back.
I didn't look back. And I can tell you how this is embarrassing to admit, especially after working on Law and Order. This is like super ridiculous for me to even admit this. But I literally didn't really know what civil litigation even meant when I went to law school. Like, had no idea what that referred to.
Yeah. So it's sort of
or anything. I was
sort
just
of the whole knowing what you just signed up for.
Right. Like I had no idea. Like that. But that's kind of who I am. Like, okay, it sounds good. I think I can do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I do it.
Yeah.
And then I learn it while I go, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I'm glad I did it. I had a really good experience in law school. I went to a large law school. So like in terms of a size of a school, it was Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. And there was probably, I want to say, maybe 1,000 in my graduating class from that law school.
Yeah.
So or maybe that's an no. I'm sorry. I'm exaggerating. Maybe there was like 1,200 in the whole law school.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
it broke down to maybe 400 per graduating class or something. But still, it was like...
Gotcha.
Yeah. And most law schools classes are a lot smaller. So like at most schools, it's like 100 people in a law school class.
So do your bigger classes, does that result in like just larger lectures, or just do even the general, like, more personal classes, are they also a little bigger?
They might be a little bigger, but they divide you into, like, a lot of sections. So they divide you up, like, so I was in, I forget my section. God, it was probably like C or B, A, B, and C or whatever, sections within your class. And so then you kind of start your first year in these big lectures. And then as you progress through law school, it gets whittled down into more interests rather than the prerequisite classes. And so you start to get into more, like I did some business law classes or something like that. And so
you don't have to specify interest in those when you first start, right?
No, and you don't really even have to specify much interest in law school. I mean, if you're interested in criminal law, then you should probably do some of the like more advanced criminal law classes, or you should do like some of the extracurriculars that deal with moot court and things like court procedure type things.
Yeah.
But if you're just wanting to work at a law firm in general practice or do like kind of test out different areas of law at a larger law firm,
right? You
don't need to do much specialty.
It doesn't have to be guided what you're picking.
No,
you can probably do a little more just willy-nilly. I'll try that. I'll try that, and it's fine.
Like I took a venture capital like law class to find out more about like entrepreneurship and like venture capital legal issues, which has actually been helpful in my life to understand operating agreements and things like that as I kind of moved out of, when I moved into like having my own business and things like that. But,
that's cool when there's an unexpected payoff to an old skill like that, where you're like, hey, that actually comes in handy that I know that.
Well, and that's what I've kind of seen looking back now in so many areas is like, okay, I really hated that or I didn't like that, but I learned this from it and I'm taking it into the next chapter.
Yeah.
And it's unexpected that skill or that knowledge comes into play, but it's made me much more versatile that I didn't have a real specialty early on or anything like that.
That you weren't just absolutely driven. This is what I want to do, and I'm only going to make choices that get me closer to that goal. And who knows, like, what you end up missing along the way, like for people who are a little too driven too early.
Yeah, or maybe too focused. And
I guess focus is a better word for it. That it's too narrow.
Yeah, you don't want to be that narrow, I think, early on. I think being in a niche can be helpful later, but I think early on, it's like, I tell that to law students when I meet them or something, I'm like, just learn as much as you can about different stuff. Like, don't get too drilled down on one thing because, first of all, the world is changing rapidly. Like, stuff that I learned on my first law position, probably not even relevant or useful today, as far as the kind of work we were doing. It's all changing. Or like, I was doing some software stuff years ago, copyright. Well, now everything's in the cloud. It's almost impossible to infringe on some of the software copyright today because you can't copy software or download with a user code or like a download code anymore. It's like, it's not like that anymore.
Right.
So it's like that area of law is changing rapidly. So like so much of what I have learned over the years, I just try to kind of take away some of the more general underlying skills of it and try to apply it going forward. I mean, now I feel like I'm a lot more specialized in what I do, but I think it's but
it's only as a result of having to at some point decide, like, okay, I guess I'm going to go into business. I need to do something.
Yeah.
So you have to specify to a potential client, here's what I want to do for you.
You can't be a general practitioner.
It sounds like you put that off, though, as long as you could, and just kept soaking up knowledge.
Not yes and no. Okay, so not purposefully did I put it off. Okay, I think that I just kind of had this very, very strange, ever-changing trajectory in my career. Where, for different reasons, ended up in kind of different businesses or practices. So I started out in civil litigation and commercial litigation, which I, entering law school 3 years before, I had no idea what that even meant. And I hated it. I hated the adversarial nature of it. I hated going to court. I felt like, especially in Los Angeles, the court system was so bogged down. It was so inefficient, so uneconomical for my clients. The whole thing was just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And things, as I think most people, if they don't know, they should know, most things settle out of court.
Yeah.
But how much money do you spend to get to the settlement is always the question, right?
Of course. How much? How?
Pause for plane.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like on set again. Okay.
Yeah, that's not something we have to do around here for planes, but certainly for motorcycle gangs.
I guess okay. Pause for Hell's Angels.
Yes, exactly.
No, so I think I always felt like my poor clients, a lot of whom were smaller business, some were large business and just kind of built it into their budgets, but small business, if you're in a lawsuit, it's probably one of the most stressful situations of your life as a business owner.
Yeah. I mean, it's what keeps people up at night.
Yes.
Knowing that they're engaged in this lawsuit, and it's bad enough that they're just thinking dollar signs and they can't sleep at night. Mm-hmm. But then you're getting this up close and personal view of this system is set up to just not really serve anybody well.
No, it wasn't serving anybody well.
It's nobody's happy with this.
No. And so I liked the people that I worked with at the firm. It was actually they liked me. I liked them. It was a good working relationship. It was an interesting relationship because I felt like that firm was unlike any place I'll ever work again. And first of all, let me be clear, I'm not working for anybody else again.
Yeah.
But that firm was so California. I mean, it was people were just different. It wasn't cutthroat because it was a mid-sized firm. It wasn't like anybody was trying to gun to be partner. It was just different.
Gotcha. You don't have those incentives.
No,
for
it was
people
different.
to be at each other's throats.
Right. And so it was actually probably a good learning experience for me to kind of learn the work, learn kind of what I didn't like, learn what I liked, and kind of working relationships within these things. And then my husband got a job offer from Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of an easy move back because we knew that living in LA long term and building a family there just wasn't going to be feasible. I wasn't willing to work 70 to 80 hour weeks and commute to a house in the valley, in the San Fernando Valley that, as my husband was like...
At a point, you're like, this is insanity.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just, we looked at houses for a hot minute and we're like, oh my, not for this price. And we'd be embarrassed to take our parents here. This is not what we want. And so moving back to the Midwest, because we're both from here, was pretty easy decision. And when I moved back, I got a job with a law firm here that was sold to me in a very different light. The job was sold to me as the type of law that I would be doing was very different than what it ended up being. And it was also literally one of the most toxic work environments I've ever been a part of.
Oh, it's disappointing.
Yes, to the point where I was getting sick from it and working there. And I learned almost nothing there except what I gained as that from that job was friends coming back into Cincinnati.
Just easing back into sort of Midwestern life.
Yeah.
At least it got you here.
And it was financial security too, because I got paid enough where we could buy a home and do these things and not
when the bar is so much more reasonably low around here.
Yeah, of course. So it was great. And then I stayed there for about 18 months, and then I ended up going to a small firm where I started learning what I do now. So I started learning about special needs planning and government benefits and kind of long-term care issues for people and disabled individuals and things like that. And so it got me into this definite niche area that kind of transitioned
Which
me.
was probably not on your radar.
Not at all.
10 years earlier.
No, at all. I didn't even know it existed, this type of work.
How many people does that, though, describe where they end up by the time they're 40 years old?
So many.
Where it's the job that they're really happy with, they didn't even know it existed when they were 20.
No, I know. And that's what's so crazy is that I wouldn't have known that it existed, but it felt like a much better fit for me because it was more about advocacy than adversarial. Conflict.
Yeah,
so for
that
me,
makes sense. Like you bring the client in, and it's like we're a team.
Yes, and then I'm helping.
We're gonna get the ball across the line together.
Yeah,
we're not trying to screw each other out of anything.
No, and I don't have to be on guard every time I answer the phone. Like that was in litigation. I was on guard all the time, and even though I'm competitive and I'm feisty at times, I don't like conflict. Like I don't like to be in direct conflict with people ongoing all the time.
I describe it as I'm not confrontational.
No.
I like to work hard, and I don't mind when a project is challenging, but when it requires confrontation, I'm not your guy.
I'm trying to get better about it, but it's definitely something where litigation just was not my my jam. Like I just could not be on guard. I could not have that strategy always going in my head about like, should I say this? Should I say that? And it just, no.
And you don't want to be going constantly up against people who thrive on that.
No.
Because they're at such a huge advantage in that environment. They're the person that lives for this.
Uh-huh.
And you're the person that like loathes this part of the job. Like long term, like you're just setting yourself up for a fucking headache.
Oh, in a heart attack.
If you like, I'm going to make this my job.
Yeah.
Even though I hate this really integral part of the job.
Yeah, the main thing about it. Yeah.
You probably ought to get out.
So I was happy to move into a more advocacy-driven practice where I'm working to solve problems in real time and find the solutions rather than try to win. It wasn't a win thing. It was more of a problem-solving, puzzle-solving type thing.
The one immigration attorney I've ever dealt with, it was that exact same feel.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, no, she was in it for like, you've got these huge hurdles in front of you, and by God, we're going to get you over them.
Yeah.
One at a time. I mean, yes, I'm going to have to bill for my time, but the point is there's nothing adversarial about this relationship whatsoever.
Well, and if I am being adversarial in my job, it's when I go up against the government, which I can totally do. Like
exactly. When it's on behalf of a client, then you can put the gloves on.
Because that's where the justice comes in. That's where the fighting for justice comes in. It's like, no, like I'm fighting for a benefit or a Medicaid eligibility issue or something like that. I'm not fighting because so-and-so wanted to, breach a contract. No, we're fighting about
and we're not trying to squeeze an extra zero out of somebody.
Right.
That's not the point.
I just want my client to get what they're entitled to. Yeah. And that's kind of where my sense of justice gets to come in a lot of times, where I feel like I was telling somebody, whenever I have to do one of those cases, it's not my favorite thing to do, but if I have to appeal something to, let's say, the state of Ohio or do something, I don't relish it, but I like it when I'm in it because I'm a good persuasive writer and I can write a brief and I can do these things. And I've won a few of them and I feel like such victory at the end of the day, even though, to be completely transparent about how everything works in our government, it's a real hollow win because half the time it never even comes through, or they don't get honored, or like you get backed up in some kind of bureaucracy crap. But so you to be able to be like presenting an argument on paper with case law or citations or proof or evidence and like say, this is what my client deserves and this is why, and this is where the government went wrong and this is where they breached their own rules and, broke the law themselves.
This
That's
is where
the fun part.
This is where we've got them by the balls.
Yeah.
And Judge, you've got to admit that.
And then I always throw on some nice, public policy argument at the end.
Of course.
For the good of man.
Yeah, when you get a win,
it's rare.
Even if it's sort of on, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, sort of in principle.
Yes.
Even if in practice it's a little disappointing, like you said, where there's some sort of other fallout, where you have to probably explain to the client there's actually some other hurdles, but at least we got over this one.
We have a win on paper a lot of the time. This work...
That's not too different than like my experience with like rental properties. That's sort of like winning a judgment on a turnip. Mm-hmm. It's still a turnip, but on some.
Right. No, I know. So I, for the most part, enjoy what I do now, which is the estate planning is kind of probably out of the 3 practice areas that I focus on, it's probably my least favorite out of the 3, just because I don't want to see it work. I don't want people to die. I don't want them I don't want to deal
especially
with
like when this is a nice client and
estate.
it's like we're putting in place everything that happens once you die, but you're so sweet.
Yeah.
Don't
I'm
die
glad
soon.
to help people, get their proverbial shit together.
Right.
But it's not that interesting. Do you know what I mean? To do estate planning. And it also, you don't really want to see it work. You're kind of like, okay, this is fun because we're just talking about when you croak and here's what's going to happen to your stuff. But that's okay. But my special needs planning, that's where I feel most grateful for kind of the opportunity to help families in real time, because you see it happening and you see the work working. Like you see like, okay, we got them that benefit, or we worked out this issue where they were going to inherit money from their grandma and it was going to kick them off benefits, but now they're not going to get kicked off.
Right. We figured out how to make it happen.
Yeah, we figured out the legal mechanism to make that work for them. And then I also like doing the elder care work, which is what a lot of the kind of long-term care planning stuff happens. And because you see that working in real time. And I can tell you the relief that the relief that is the families get when your work is done is tremendous. Like the thanks and the gratitude and the relief that they all feel when skilled care has been secured and paid for and, everything's working the way it's supposed to for everybody. That's when people are sending me, cards in the mail and giving me...
That's a tangible difference in their everyday life.
Yes. And it's a huge stressor for so many families. Mm-hmm. So I like that as well because I see it work in real time. I think it's the estate planning, the fact that you don't want it to work in real time because you don't want people to pass away and have their will and their trust go into effect at that point, is why it's not as gratifying or it's not as enjoyable for me to do.
Yeah. And you're not going to get that super satisfied thank you phone call after they're dead anyways.
No, not really.
That's the dead person is the one that would potentially call you.
Yeah.
And say thanks, it worked great.
Yeah.
The kids
exactly what I wanted it to do.
The kids that get the distribution don't really care who the lawyer is
who wrote it up?
That drew up the paperwork.
Right.
It's like the person you've pleased has now passed.
Yes. So, I mean, I have lovely clients of all generations and families, and I think building community is one of the reasons that I like being in business for myself and getting to know more and more people in the community. And kind of my goal had been to be the person to go to for these areas of need in this geographic area, in my township, in my city, and so it's happening and it's been happening and it's great and I'm enjoying that aspect of it. But I think you were kind of saying at first or asking me, how did I end up here?
Yeah. Well, just the general trajectory, but you gave us a pretty good idea of how you landed here.
Kind of. So I didn't tell you about some of the things that happened in between.
Yeah.
There's a couple more steps that I think really bear into why I have my own business today, which I think are super...
Yeah, because that wasn't necessary. You could have decided that this is what you want to do, and you could have found someone who already had a practice specializing in it and just said, hey, can you make room for me?
Right.
So that's a clear decision.
So there was a time, and I was working at that small firm when I started to learn about these practice areas.
Yeah.
And so eventually that small firm, when it didn't go out of business, but the owner decided to close it and fold some of us into his corporation that he was doing. So I became like a in-house corporation lawyer after doing special needs planning, which was helpful, to be honest, in some ways, because I learned a lot of like business and corporate stuff.
Yeah.
But I was part-time because I had little kids and I asked to be part-time.
And so you were part-time before that change even?
Kind of. I was more full-time while that small little firm was happening. And then he decided to close it. And then I transitioned into a corporate role in a part-time.
Gotcha. So it was just the timing worked out.
Yeah, and it did. And I asked for it because I wanted to be home 2 days a week with my little guys at the time.
Yeah.
Who were babies, like literal babies. So that to me was very important to have that part-time and that flexibility. And so I worked there, and then I just basically got let go. I kind of saw it coming. I think they didn't want a part-time person anymore. They had a guy that was willing to be full-time. Like there was a few
So you think they had the workload
there was a
to
few
where
factors.
Yeah.
I also think it was a boys' club, to be completely honest with you, and I just wasn't fitting in.
It wouldn't be the first one.
No, especially in a law firm, like a law environment or like a business corporate environment.
That has to be common.
Yeah, and so when that happened, I was in a position where I had a little time to make some decisions and figure out where to go from there. And I just had a horrible taste in my mouth of working for environments where I was on someone else's agenda. I was a cog in the wheel, and I wasn't given my talent, and my skill wasn't given enough, I guess, opportunity to shine or to excel. And I was feeling limited, but also limited by being a woman and limited by all these things that were just kind of factors in those companies or in those business environments. And so my husband and I were talking. I was like, listen, I'm going to be really intentional on my next step because I really don't want to get in a situation that I don't like again.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go and work full time if I don't have to. So like, let's try to and so he was super supportive. Like, let's feel it out, see what's out there. So I interviewed for a few places that.
So was he was stable with the P&G thing all through this?
Yes.
So for him, did that end up being what he expected it to be and what he wanted it to be? So he didn't really have those upsetting discoveries that you did.
He did not. I don't think he's had like the same kind of tumultuous career path divergence or anything like that. But what he started doing for P&G 16 or 15 years ago, whenever he went there, is completely different than what he's doing today.
Okay, so it has changed.
Yes, it's evolved, it's changed, it's grown and adapted. Like stuff that he does today he does media strategy for the most part, was not.
Yeah, that probably wasn't even on the menu.
Well, the role that he does today is so different than what was available 15 years ago. And he wasn't even in that area 15 years ago. Yeah. So it was very different. Like when he started at P&G, he was working in their pharma division. They don't even have it anymore. They sold it off.
Gotcha.
So like he ended up being a survivor of it, like moving into different areas. He's that business that he started in there isn't even there anymore. So it's very interesting how his career has evolved and changed as well in 15 years. But for me, so this is super, mid 2010 or something, like, where I was writing a blog because, as one does.
Yeah. Oh, I read
back
it.
There. Oh, yeah.
I read it. Yeah, it was great.
Darius, fan of the Pop Mama blog.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't the only one.
So I was writing a blog, and I posted on the blog something about leaving that job, and here's kind of my background, and I'm looking for my next chapter, and who knows what it'll bring, kind of, you know. And I wasn't putting it out there for job seeking. It was just more like a rumination on what was going on in my life.
Right.
And a sorority sister from DePauw reached out, who I was not really close with in college, but friendly with. And she reached out. She's like, listen, I'm in-house counsel for this not-for-profit in D.C., and we farm out work to attorneys.
Okay.
She's like, what you are describing, not the special needs planning, not like that, but some from what I learned at that in-house corporation job, I had some skills that would be translated, could work in this context that she had. And she's like, I have work I can give you. All you have to do is start your own firm. I don't know how hard that is to do in Ohio.
Right.
Let me know if you want, and I can hire you as outside counsel. You can work from your house. Like, you don't ever have to leave the house. And I was like, what? And so surprised.
Yeah.
But
that was an intense conversation around the dinner table that evening.
Yes. So with my husband, I'm like, do I start my own firm? So of course, I'm kind of the mindset, and I have always been this way, but I've kind of put words to it in the last couple of years. But like, and there's a famous, author and like life coach woman, Marie Forleo, who says everything is figure outable. And like, that is my mantra. Like, it is. Yeah. Everything is figure outable.
Such a good way to look at everything.
And that's probably why I jumped into law school without knowing a whole lot about it. It's probably why I was willing to, just kind of walk into these situations. I moved across the country. I moved to LA without ever seeing LA. I'd never been there.
Yeah. And you made it work.
And I just did it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll figure it out. And I did. And so I was like, should I figure this out? And Dave's like, well, see what it entails, see what's going on with it.
Yeah. So, it sounds like it's definitely worth doing a little legwork at that point.
And turns out, Ohio, it's not hard to start a law firm in Ohio. It's not hard to have an LLC and do these things. So like, I reached out to resources. I found a CPA that kind of gave me a little guidance and told me where to go first and look for things. And I started my own law firm in July of 2012. I got my first cases within weeks from Jen.
Okay. So that was probably your sole source of work.
Yes, it was my only source of work. But I was starting to get contacted through like LinkedIn or email or like my cell phone from previous clients from that small little law firm that went didn't last.
Yeah.
And they're saying to me, no one is doing this work that you did, the special needs planning and all this stuff. No one's doing that anymore. We can't find someone.
So if that wasn't the case, that would have changed everything. Because you wouldn't have been, because they would have found someone.
Right.
If there was someone doing it.
Right.
So you wouldn't have gotten all those emails.
No. And so then I ended up getting contacted, and I just kind of kept up relationships, and I realized there was still a market for that kind of work, and that a lot of it I could do from home. It wasn't something I needed to meet with people or go to court or have an office to do it. And so I started doing one-off cases in the special needs planning area in my law firm, and then I kept doing this other stuff from the not-for-profit in DC and kept doing their work, which was keeping the bills paid. And like, to be honest though, the overhead was so low working out of your house that it was almost all profit anyway. But the whole point was I was ramping up, and I was still able to have my 3-day-a-week schedule and be with my kids 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And be at home. They were at daycare the 3 days. I was at home, got a lot of laundry done. Basically had this little life where my extroverted self was sitting in my home office all day, and like my introverted husband was having to politic and make his way through P&G. And it's like so funny because we always thought it was such a role reversal. Like, I should be there. Not really, because I hate corporate politics.
Right. But at least from outward appearances, it would seem like you're better suited to climb that corporate ladder.
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But do the backroom schmoozing. Yeah. But it ends up that actually maybe this is a better fit.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So I worked from home, and I built up my business, and I started to then build up more of the other practice areas, like the long-term care planning, the elder law, and the estate planning, and started kind of learning those a lot more, and really starting to put the mechanics of a real firm together while I was still doing the not-for-profit work, and I was doing these things, and it's made me have to figure out so much, and there's been very stressful times, obviously, but I think overall, I wouldn't go back to working for anyone, firm again, ever at this point in my life. Like, I answer to no one except for God, I guess, and that's it. I have no interest.
You found it.
Yeah, I have no interest in having someone else dictate what my clients, I answer to my clients, but like I'm not interested in someone else's agenda.
And someone else's input on whether you did a good job or not.
Or if like, you know, I think where I'm being intentional in my business is what's important to me. Yeah. And what's important to me is serving my clients well, letting them feel peace of mind at the end of the day, but also living my life. Like I can't be a person that works 80 hours a week. It doesn't work for me. I burn out too quickly. I need the balance, and working for myself has afforded the balance. But I do want to say this. I am incredibly cognizant of the fact that I have a lot of privilege because my husband had a secure job and had health insurance, and we could afford the daycare where my kids were there for 3 days a week while I was building my firm. And I did make money. It's not like I didn't, but it wasn't. Right. But
it's a huge leg up compared to the person that doesn't have those things in place.
For sure.
That's a much harder row to hoe.
And I had the safety net, essentially. So if it failed, like we said we would give it 6 months. And if I couldn't make any money or it wasn't worth it in 6 months, then I would go and look for another job. And it worked. And within 6 months, I was making money. So it worked. But I worked my ass off, to be clear. But it was more that I recognize that I had the safety net that a lot of people don't have.
But as we have talked about, that's where at least some of your earlier, hopefully better decisions that you made in life set the stage for you to be able to make moves where you've hopefully put things in place. Not that we don't all get help from outside sources. Obviously we do.
Yeah.
But there is some level of I always try to keep myself set up to be open to the next opportunity.
Yes, and so that's
try to always have things in place so that when that opportunity presents itself, I don't have to say, I'm going to have to take a pass.
Right.
Because I don't have sort of fundamental blocks in place to allow me to jump on that opportunity.
Exactly. And I think also something for me is that if I need to, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to put in the extra work. Like if I needed to get a second job, while I was working, trying to build the firm, and the firm was only taking up X amount of time, but I could, if I needed to do something else to make some money, I would do it. You know what I mean? If that's what I really needed to do. So, Dave and I talk about that. My husband, Dave, and I talk about that a lot, about, we're going to make it happen some way or another. And there's always going to be forces against you and shit happens, other things that are unforeseen. But I think overall, we planned enough so we weren't feeling so crazed when I, got let go from that company.
Yeah, to where you have the flexibility.
Yeah.
To sort of figure out the next move. Yeah. And I'm told any 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid that'll listen when I'm talking to a friend's children, I tell them constantly till I'm blue in the face, basically that lesson of look, you probably don't even know that what'll end up being the best job for you exists yet. Doesn't matter. You just need to concentrate on making sure you're making moves forward and that you're not making lateral or backward moves.
Yeah.
And you need to maximize your income, not sell your soul for it. But you certainly need to put yourself in a position to where when you find out about this next great opportunity that sounds amazing, but maybe it doesn't pay a ton of money or it requires some other just rigid change in your life, you've got to be in a position where you're free to jump on it.
You have to be able to take a risk, and you have to be willing to do it, but you also have to feel risks are always going to be scary, but there also has to be some kind of sense I've got this one way or another. Even if it fails, even if I fall flat on my face, I can still figure this out. That's something I think about a lot too.
This is not going to end up in bankruptcy.
Yes, hopefully not. And that's something you think about but you also think when you make a decision that may be scary is I kind of go through, well, what is the worst result of this, and then I always am able to stomach that at the end of the day. It's so weird. Like, you think about it and you're like, oh no, I'll figure that out.
I'd be fine.
Yeah, I'd be fine. And some of it is that I feel really blessed and secure in like my family life and like my priorities as far as like my kids and, you know, my family and stuff like that.
Well, and that is huge, knowing that they're on a good footing.
Yeah. And so like,
they are not just absolutely beholden to me to keep it together. No, like they're on a good trajectory.
Yeah.
As they are.
Yeah. Or like I have the support, or I know the resources, or like I can figure this out. Like none of us are infallible.
Yeah,
Things
but back to your whole figure outable.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of
relate
live
that too.
by.
I was taught years ago when I was doing contracting work full time. Somebody told me when I think I made a comment to another contractor of something about how like, oh man, yeah, but if we do that, like we could end up breaking this, and I don't know what we would do then. Mm-hmm. And he just sort of laughed and he said, "Look at this whole building around you." There was a point where this building didn't exist. Mm-hmm. So if it was put here once, it can be put here again. He goes, "There's nothing we could do to this building that we can't fix."
Yeah.
We just got to figure out, what did that first guy do? Mm-hmm. And we just got to do it again. So he's like, it relates to your same idea of figure outable.
Yeah.
And he's like, just stop worrying.
Yeah.
Let's just do this job.
Stop white knuckling
and everything you see around you can be fixed. So if we damage it, we'll fix it.
Somebody said something to me. I know who it was. It was my really good friend Katie said to me years ago when I was selling our first house and it was a bad market and we were selling the house. We had to leave because I was rather pregnant with my second kid and needed to get out
gotcha.
and move to something that was going to suit our family better. But we were going to lose money on the sale of the house.
Do you already have your own firm at that point?
No.
Okay, so you're still
working for
gotcha.
Others. And we were going to sell the house, and it just kept getting whittled away. Like, there was going to be, it was basically selling it at a loss a little bit. I mean, we weren't upside down
price,
in it.
Plus they're asking for concessions.
Exactly.
And it
was driving us nuts. I mean, it was
just
so
get this
stressful.
over with.
But we needed to get out, and we knew it was the right decision to leave. But my friend was like, "Listen, Annie, it's just money.
Yeah.
It's just money." And I was like, "You're right. It is. And money is abundant."
Yeah.
Like, if you live in a mindset of abundance where you don't believe in lack necessarily, then, which I've learned about a lot in the last 5 years about those mindset shifts, then it is just money. And guess what? It all kind of comes full circle. Like, it didn't losing, whatever it was, like $10,000 on that house or whatever, didn't sink us, didn't even, you know, I mean, we were able to recoup that over time and get another place.
You're just one couple out of millions that have lost money on a house.
Yes.
It happens.
And shit, we weren't even in a situation where we're upside down or anything.
And it didn't even sink you.
Yeah.
It's just inconvenient, and it's a punch in the gut.
Yeah, it's just kind of disappointing.
But ultimately you realize you're just one person amongst millions that have lost money on a real estate deal. It's not the end of the world.
Well, that, and I think it comes back to where I am today is that so that comment years ago, but then also the COVID situation that we've all lived through.
Ugh.
And I lost 7 clients in a period of about 6 months to COVID or other death.
You call them clients as in you had done
work for them
in the
or
past.
I was in the middle of doing work for them.
So you had some where you were in the process?
Yes.
Oh, that's rough.
That died. And all through that and the uncertainty and the fact that everything that we held in such a tight fist could change in the moment. I'm not talking about death. I'm talking about shutting down businesses, shutting down schools, everything changing within moments,
what
right?
seemed like successful businesses.
Right.
Like thriving. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly the rug dragged out from under them and everybody thinking, holy shit.
So that everything can turn.
The rules have all changed.
Yes, everything can turn so quickly, and it kind of let everybody. I feel like it was almost like a second, like flooding of the earth, and like Noah. Like it's like, listen, guys, like this is not like fucking permanent here. Like, just because you really value this in your life doesn't mean it's going to stick around. And so get used to the fact that everything is, fluid, and life is not certain, and you can't count on much of anything.
Yeah, and none of us are insulated from really life-changing, like major catastrophes.
Right, and so just that COVID...
It could happen to you and me.
Put it into relief, like a really sharp relief, real quick.
Yeah.
And so for me, I keep saying in my head, like as decisions come up or life-altering changes happen, where I'm like, you know what? Like, don't hold things so tightly and don't white-knuckle everything. A lot of this shit that people think is important is not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of probably hurting me in some ways because I don't have a ton of tolerance for, like, shallow conversation and stuff. And that's why I'm, like, loving doing this with you because, like, I'm actually feel like we're talking.
I don't see the problem in that, though, personally. Because I'm similarly so, and I don't have to have those conversations for work the way that you do, but I just throw them out there in casual conversation for the same reason.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like more people just need to hear their mortality spoken about a little more fluidly than they're used to. And so I'm gonna just do it. And if they don't like it,
you're like, let's get real. Camp Ubo. We're going to talk about...
We're not doing business together. So you're free to just leave.
Yeah. I don't give a shit what you think of me.
Yeah.
Like, so it's coming to that point, though, in my life where it's really difficult. I was at an event last night at my kid's school, and I don't know if it's me or the environment with COVID and everything else, or like people are struggling. I find it harder to connect on like a casual level these days, where I much rather sit here and have a conversation like this with you or with someone
right. Or the other people that we know are sort of like-minded.
For sure.
To where like that layer of guarded behavior is like, we just push that aside.
Well, yeah, like the Puritans who judge me for cursing, I have no interest in like spending this much
of course
time, but like, it doesn't even have to be like-mindedness. It has to be someone that's genuine and can, I guess, cut through the bullshit a little bit. Like, we don't have to agree on everything, but I need to know that we're not just
I need to know
talking.
I need to know that I'm hearing your real opinion.
Yeah.
And not the opinion that you're trying to signal to your side.
Yeah.
Of a colloquial argument. I'm not interested in your signaling to your side, and I'm not trying to signal to my side. Let's just talk.
That, and like I struggle with like going to things where, and this might just be some of the circles that I happen to run into, but like people just want to talk about like buying the next Tesla or buying something. And I'm like not interested in that.
There are certainly those folks. I've got a few in my circles as well.
And I'm just like, I can't.
And
I
it's
just
hard
want
to
talk
stomach
about
sometimes.
That. Yeah, like it's just...
Yeah.
I think I'm at the point after COVID and after all the people that I've had die and like the loss that I've suffered in the last probably like year and a half in my life about like relationships being fucked up and dying and everything else, or being, I should say, like irreconcilably changed kind of things happening. I only want genuine interaction because I don't know how much time I have here. Maybe that's my own mortality. Like I'm like 41 years old and I'm like, I think a lot about death because I talk about it every day. That's probably why.
Well, that's true. I mean, you are forced to talk about it more than most of us. But I think there probably is something else also to just the age that we're reaching. Because I'm Acacia and I are definitely finding that with friends.
Yeah.
That like we're starting to latch on tighter to the friends that we can have those conversations with and letting go of those folks that just don't seem ready or able to have those conversations on that level.
Yeah.
Because I feel the same way. I just feel like we're not getting any younger. I need to have some.
Well, and time is our only commodity, right?
And I've always thought, and this is, more probably influence for me personally on my lack of religious conviction of any sort. I've always felt like, as an atheist, this is not practice for the big game. This is the big game.
Sure.
This is it.
Yeah.
We're here. And like, if you're not taking every single opportunity to just interact with other conscious entities to the fullest that you possibly can, as much as you possibly can every second, then what are we doing here?
That's exactly right. No, I feel like I'm not an atheist, but I definitely feel that way. And I feel like we are here either, as I believe, we're here to love one another and be the best to one another that we can do. Take care of one another, essentially. Make the world a better place.
That seems like the utmost goal.
Yes. But, I mean, so when it comes down to... So this was something I just thought about literally in the last, 2 weeks, probably. So we're at this part of our life that we never dreamed about.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm finding that this part of my life that I never dreamed about, if I'm not intentional about it, will be sucked away very easily by busyness and numbing drinking practices. Not like I'm an alcoholic or that we are, but that becomes fills the gap.
But just a haze.
It fills the gap, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of like... So, I noticed this with some of my friends and who I love dearly, but it's almost like we go, we do this with our kids, with our family, we work, we do whatever, then we're just in that gap where it's quiet or we have that downtime, then we're like, what cocktail are we having?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I didn't feel this way early on in my 30s or anything. I feel like it was a different vibe or mindset that I had. But now I feel like I'm in this middle section where I'm dealing with parents who are aging and have their own, stuff going on.
That is its own whole bag of stress.
I've been saddled with some responsibility in some of those areas.
Yeah,
and then I am...
When you always thought that it was further off, that that's not going to be on my plate yet.
Yeah, that we're all going to fucking live forever and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and then those parent issues start showing up.
Sure. So then we also have the other end. We're like, I hate that fucking term, sandwich generation or whatever, but we're kind of there. You know what I mean? We're feeling it a little bit. Like we have the dependence.
It's a cheesy term for it, but it is. But it's a real thing.
Yeah.
That it's like, I don't know, I'm trying to hang up on a call where I'm handling something for my kid, and now I'm trying to handle something for mom.
Yeah.
And
I see it in my job too, and that's why I think it slaps me in the face so hard sometimes. Is I'm like, oh my God, I'm dealing with these families who are dealing with these long-term care things, and then I'm starting to have to deal with nothing, thank God, both my parents are healthy, but I'm dealing with some stuff, responsibilities or guidance. And there comes this time, and sorry, Mom and Dad, if you listen to this, but there comes a time where you kind of realize you thought your parents had their shit together.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't as put together as you once thought it was.
No, exactly.
I'm not insulting you guys, my parents, if you're listening, but I am saying
anyone
you start
who gets
to realize
close,
that.
Yeah, I think anyone who gets really close with their parents later in life certainly finds that. They're like, man, my parents are just as flawed as me.
Yes, I think that's it. You realize their humanity and their flaws and maybe their decision making.
Exactly. I think you can be spared that if you're one of those kids that never really gets close with their parents as an adult. Because I have friends like that. Mm-hmm. When I tell them that I talk to my dad on the phone for an hour, 2, 3, 4 times a week, they're just mind blown. My God, you talk to your dad for 4 or 5 hours a week? What do you talk about? And I'm like, I don't know, just stuff. We just talk about life. And so in that, of course, I'm going to come to really understand his flaws.
Yeah.
And see him as a human being, not much different from myself. But I think people who don't ever go through that phase, it's easy for them to not ever realize that.
There's
about
like an
their parents.
arm's length thing that goes on for people that don't have that.
Yeah, and in that case, it's the lawyer is who's going to fix all the problems.
Well, and then
because
I'm
the
the one that
family
has
isn't
to
aware of the
present
problems
a lot of the time. Like I have to be like, let's have a real talk about what's really going on with mom and dad's finances, when they didn't know before or something. And so I think...
So you're having to step into a situation where they're all blissfully ignorant.
Sometimes. And a lot of times it's just like a wake-up call as to like what things are going to look like in the next several years.
Yeah.
But I think as we get older, I just feel like we're in this tension between raising human beings and trying to be, probably in most cases, not speaking for everybody, but like raise the parenting game over what you were parented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And make sure that you're not making the same mistakes that you view as being made mistakes on you or whatever as a child.
Right. Yeah, trying to feel like you're taking on board the new information.
Right.
And
you're flexing with the modern times.
Yeah, and thinking like, all right, here's how I was raised, and now I can see some flaws in that. So
or the issues are different
I'm trying to correct for those, and then I'm trying to do my best with these kids. So
the issues are so different anyway now with our kids versus what we faced and everything else.
The things that need attention are quite different.
So we're trying to do that. We're trying to have marriages that work. We're trying to be children of aging parents. And I think if we're lucky, like you said, you have a close relationship with your parents, but it comes with a double-sided sword in a way because
it will bring them down off that pedestal.
Yes.
And it can be really fun to bring them down and connect in that way. But it can also be disappointing if you like really enjoyed sort of revering them up on that pedestal with zero flaws, and then to sort of discover that, like, they've got all these flaws and actually
in some ways I think I agree with you on that. And I think in some ways it's really helpful from empathy and humanity standpoint to see that some of the most important figures in your life were just human. We all are human.
Doesn't that sum up when you were following pop culture closer with your blog?
Yeah.
I mean, that sums up like the
celebrities are just like us.
Yeah. I mean, that in the end, I mean, that you could just sum up every big bombshell story about a celebrity with just stop worshiping these people.
Yes.
They're normal humans.
Yes.
They're just as flawed as you and me.
Yes.
They've cheated on things. They've let their own standard of decency down on occasion.
They yell at their own kids. Like, I mean, everyone has their own issues, like, right? But I just feel like we're in this tension right now, and it's an interesting kind of stage of life. But I just find myself in these situations where it becomes difficult to interact on a certain level with like groups of people,
especially if you don't feel like there's anyone in the room
that I can connect with on that level.
That wants to have that conversation right now. When you're like, all I want right now is to have that conversation. Is there anyone in this room
to have any
that wants
genuine
to have it?
Conversation that isn't or and this is where you and I have connected as being friends over the years, I think, has the same kind of sense of humor and can look at the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's the icing on the cake, because that means the conversation can go on for more than 5 minutes.
For sure.
I mean, I can have a 5-minute pleasant conversation with someone that might be very genuine, but it sort of runs its course, and then the differences between us sort of step in the way, and it cut it off. If you can find that, well, now the conversation can go for 3 hours.
Well, now you can be friends for life.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you can understand my sense of humor and not judge me for it.
Yeah. And God forbid, enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and, like, understand that it's fucking funny.
Yeah.
And it's not, I think that's where sometimes I walk away from something like a party or, my husband will be like, those were not our people.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't understand. That joke did not land.
Yeah. And
I'm like, I'm sorry,
and
I'm
you
a
just
dark
you just
being.
walk down the sidewalk going, yeah, I know, but fuck them.
Yeah, like, do I care? Not really.
Right.
But I'm like, wow,
right.
that did not land in the way that I had hoped.
Yeah.
Or,
But it did for me. It was funny, right, honey?
My husband will be like, oh, I got it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and like, you have those friends in life where I can say almost anything that comes out of my mouth, and they're going to know where it's coming from. Like, is it a joke? You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to explain myself. And I also don't, I know that I'll never be judged for like what I said.
Yeah.
Because they know where it's coming from or what it is.
Of course,
and like, that's like the golden egg, if you can find it in life.
And it doesn't have to come from longevity. I feel like I can meet someone relatively recently and find that. It doesn't have to be that because we've been friends for 20 years.
No.
And you know that old story of mine.
No.
No, because I occasionally meet somebody, and within months, we can sort of find that level of connection.
Within like 2 or 3 conversations, sometimes you're like, this person gets me.
Yeah.
And we're good.
Yeah.
And I know that I can come up to them later and we're going to be able to connect. And luckily, I have those people in my life. But I think, it's hard when you're having, like, you meet people that are maybe the parents of your friends. I'm sorry, your parents of your kids' friends.
Of course. Who
you love
are.
and are lovely people, and they take good care of your kids, and they, you trust them, and their morals are the kind of morals that you would want in a household if you're going to send your kid over there and everything else.
Of course. But at the same time, they're not your people.
No.
And so, yeah, I think every parent, I assume, goes through that.
Yeah.
We certainly do. I'm sure you guys do too.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm not people's people.
That's a different. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not someone's cup of tea.
I assume that I'm that way for a lot of them.
Yeah.
Where they're like, he seems nice enough. He's a little much for me, but like, and I'm fine with that.
She has a potty mouth. That's what they say about me. I think.
Yeah, I think all parents, I think, are going through that of like, these are the kids' friends' parents.
Yeah,
and
you have your compartments.
We can be pleasant.
Yeah,
and have no ill will. I have nothing bad to say about them at all. We just don't connect in that way.
But I think it's just like, that's what I was trying to say. It's like, it's hard sometimes when you're like in this. I think the last 18 months of life have kind of put it in sharp relief. Like, I am struggling with figuring out my time, my intentionality, where I want to spend my time with people that I want to spend it. Like, and I think that's part of it. Like, we're all just kind of searching for connection and real connection. Not everybody, actually. I shouldn't say that. I think some people are still unwilling to be vulnerable enough or share enough of themselves
you're right.
to do that.
Not everyone is looking for that. But if you are looking for, because I feel like I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Then it's an active process.
Yeah.
So I'm just like kind of trying to figure out who else is also looking for this. And when you find them, like, you latch onto each other. You have these long conversations.
Yeah.
I've got friends, some of them old, some of them new, where we're having like these regular, very long conversation. Even if they're long distance, it's on the phone, and we're connecting.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end.
Yeah.
It just makes you more hungry for
exactly.
This is out there.
Yeah.
So I need to not spend too much time in superficial connections that might happen to be convenient and local.
Right. It feeds your soul. Like, I feel like I walk away, or even like, not even in person. Like, I have a friend from LA who I always connected with well, John, and he wrote me an email randomly, I think, one night. I mean, we talk on the phone once in a while, but he lives in LA. It's like, we're far away, different time zones. And we all have kids and whatnot. And he wrote me an email just kind of like updating me or something. And I just loved the email because it was like asking me questions about my life, and it was open. And, I'm just like, not that I've ever been fake with him, but I just wrote him back everything that was going on. I was like, shit is not great in these areas,
Yeah.
These areas are good. I'm struggling here, I'm in therapy, which I am wholeheartedly endorse for any human being to go through that process at least once in their life to get some stuff together. And of course he writes back, I am too. Like, you know, but everybody,
nice.
like everything's been such a process in the last 18 months, and being able to kind of spill my guts in an email and then at the end I'm like, I don't know if this is what you were thinking you were going to get back, but like we're good enough friends, I feel like, for you to hear all this. And he writes back, absolutely. But so I just think if you can have those interactions and have those people in your life that you can be honest and genuine and vulnerable with, but also have so much fun with when you see them. It's like such the gift in life. And then I'm trying to appreciate those relationships in my life. And I do feel like you're one of them. Like, like even though we rarely see each other, it's such a gift to like when I do see you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I reached out for this. I was like, well, it's I know it's going to be interesting beyond the fact that you've got a successful law practice. It's like the least interesting part of me. Yeah. I didn't want to shit on it like that, but yes, I knew that it was going to be that connection's always been there, and yeah, you're one of the few people when it comes down to it. Is like yourself, it's been a chore, sort of scraping that group together.
Yeah, and they're
and
far
having
flung,
them
probably,
and having
right?
them to talk to. I'm thankful that I've got them, but they didn't just fall in my lap. It was effort to stay in touch once I do meet them and make sure that we're like having these occasional, deeper, longer conversations. And,
'cause isn't that why we're here?
Well, like I said, as far as my personal philosophy on life, it is the most important thing.
Connection.
Yeah.
Is.
Connection to other conscious creatures.
Yeah.
It is the top priority.
Yeah. Relational, like, I totally believe that. I say that all the time. I'm like, Dave, our only purpose in this earth is to love one another well and take
nothing
care of
I can achieve at work or with investments or with anything else could ever supersede.
It's meaningless.
Sort of that top
it goes
priority.
away. It goes away in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all in addition to.
Right. And I think that's where I find the struggle these days is like COVID cut off a lot of the meaning for me in some of the superficial or the trappings of success and the hamster wheel that we were probably all on a little bit more intensely before COVID hit.
Right.
And because I know I was on a much different hamster wheel than what I am on now.
Absolutely.
Before COVID.
Absolutely. Oh, it changed a bunch of things for all of us.
Yeah.
But same thing for me. It sort of put everything, how I was spending my time, under a microscope because it was changed so dramatically in a short period of time. You couldn't help but reevaluate how you were spending your time 6 months ago because now you've got so many of these avenues of outlet cut off. Mm-hmm. So you're going to re-examine.
And like, what
was
did you
I
miss?
actually using my time to its fullest potential? I mean, I knew the answer was probably no before, but I wasn't forced to put it under a microscope.
Right.
And then COVID hits, and now it is. It's up for it to examine. Because what the hell else am I going to do with all this time sitting around doing homeschool duty with the kids? I'm going to reevaluate some of my recent choices.
Oh, I know. Everything had to be kind of reexamined, and sometimes it's like scares me and feels a little suffocating to be adding back things, you know? And so Dave and I have tried to discuss that like on an ongoing basis. Like, is this where we really want to be at this time with this activity?
Because maybe things drifted into your life before on a more unintentional basis, but now you can exercise intention on which ones you allow back in.
And we try. I think we really are trying, but it's still scary because in America and in our competitive environment, you feel a passive, if not, what's the difference between passive? Direct?
Yeah.
Direct. You feel the pressure of like am I doing everything that I should be doing for my children, for myself, for my, is my home? Like, I went to freaking Homerama that they're doing in Anderson this year because I was volunteering there. And for the Chamber of Commerce, and I went.
That'll make you feel like your house is a piece of shit.
Oh my God. I walked out of there and I was like, well, I live in the slum on the other side of Anderson now. Like,
what am I doing with my life?
What am I? And like, I was telling my dad, I was like, what do these people do for a job that bought these houses?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they are insane, these houses. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a relatively successful, like I should say, like monetarily successful person. And
I feel like I'm doing all right.
I feel like I'm doing better than my parents did. And here I am, like,
I can afford that.
And I'm like,
not even close.
Like, I can rent the basement. Like, I don't know what's going on over there. I was like, wow. And so I was talking to some of the women that I was volunteering with there, and I was like, what do you think it is like about like? And one of them said, well, I always just assume that these people are either leveraged to the hilt or in debt, you know. Yeah. And then the other one said, well, I assume that they either inherit the money or have just had really good investment luck. Yeah. And I don't know what the other one said, but basically, like, no one can really explain it.
There was no go-to explanation.
No, I mean, it's got to be a confluence of factors that makes people be able to afford it.
And there are people who make that kind of money, for sure. Yeah. I mean, whatever. They start a business, it ends up being wildly successful, and at a point, they're, like, making money faster than they can count it, and that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. I guess at that point, what else? I mean, once you've got all the things...
Yeah, you have a mudroom with a dog shower in it. That's what you do, apparently.
Exactly.
and a golf studio in the basement.
You get a Wi-Fi connected trash can at a point, because what the hell else do you do with your money?
Then you know you've made it. When your trash can can be opened by your phone, you have succeeded.
Exactly.
America. I want to live in Europe often.
Yeah, we've thought about that before, and Canada. The idea of both Europe and Canada comes up pretty often.
Yeah, yeah.
I could swing either one.
Maybe I'll just move here to Camp Ooble and live in this guest house and call it a day.
Exactly. Like, this is mine now. Can I get a mailbox? How do we do that?
I'm like the closet under the stairs.
Yeah, exactly. We'll make a little Harry Potter closet for you. Well, hey,
do you think you got enough?
I'm taking a lot of your time here.
That's all right. It was worth it.
Yeah. Well,
the kids are still. It's a beautiful day. The kids are still.
Yeah. It is perfect out here,
everything.
And they don't seem like they're slowing down at all.
Yeah, but you guys have to come over sometime and have burgers or do something at our house.
Absolutely.
I don't have all the stuff though. I don't think our kids would have as much fun. But maybe we could just come back here. I'll just put a life jacket and a helmet on Alex, the 4-year-old, and call it a day.
Exactly.
You cannot take this off.
Yeah.
But I don't care what you do.
Yeah. Just go everywhere.
Run around.
Go everywhere and do all the things.
Yeah, stay with the big kids.
Okay, so that was my talk with Annie Warner. You'll understand after having listened to that why I'm about to say that I'm frankly embarrassed at how little time I've set aside to spend with Annie over these last 10 or 15 years. Having someone like her nearby, with her great mix of just the balance that she's got between being smart and being funny and being interesting. It's a rare mix. We're going to make more time. We have to. On another note, I need some of you to please reach out to me if you think you have someone that would make a good guest on the podcast. At this point, you've heard 3 episodes, so you've got kind of a rough idea of what I'm going for. I'm not looking for super wealthy. I'm not looking for already famous. Basically, I'm not so much interested in people who already get a lot of attention from the media. I'm interested in people with an interesting story that's not being told, or at least not being told on a grander stage. Not that this is a huge stage. We don't have millions of followers. But hey, maybe someday, right? So if you can, reach out to me. You can email at campublepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can just go to the website, campbuglepodcast.com, and there's a contact us link on there. Either way is great. But just, it'd be nice to hear kind of what you all would like to hear. And if you've got someone in mind, then drop me that line and we'll try to make it happen. Anyways, that's all for this episode. Again, thank you so much for listening. I'm flattered that you all take the time to listen to these. I really am. It's humbling. Anyways, thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube or your podcast app of choice to catch new releases. Episode notes along with behind-the-scenes media can be found on our website at campbuglepodcast.com.